What's up guys, Aroneous here with another Raid Shadow Legends video. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about all the new champions that are going to be coming into play on this 10x video, so let's get into it. So the first champion we're going to start with the epic champions and then we'll go on to the legendaries. Let's see here. We've got demon spawns. So we've got a lore on the 10x that's coming up. This is actually going to be a really big 10x for those who are actually going to be pulling for this event. And of course, Plarium would do this to everybody out there because not only do they want you to spend, they probably are going to be bringing in 2x ancient or a guaranteed ancient summon or a sacred summon. Something's going to be coming up soon. I just can feel it. I just think that they're doing this on purpose so people can spend all of their shards and then boom, they're going to hit us with, okay, here's a guaranteed summon for this amazing champion. And then the whales or krakens are going to start spending even more money to try to get that guaranteed champion as well. So it's a win-win for Plarium either way. So the first champion is a lore, amazing champion. You put her with 100% crit rate. She decreases the target's turn meter by 25% on each critical hit up to 75%, which is pretty insane, especially against endgame content. Scarab boss she's insane against. I use a double allure against Scarab boss endgame. Of course, there are people who use Armiger as well, but I like to use Allure. It's more of a successful win rate in my opinion, unless for some reason she hits a weak hit. But I do have, I have put an Allure in a specific set that you can utilize from the Forge. Now, it's not the strongest set out there, but you can try out the Affinity Breaker on Allure. There are a couple of different free-to-play players out there, like Eobard, for example, who actually uses Affinity Breaker to help increase that chance to not get a weak hit against the Scarab boss on endgame content. So she's fantastic. So the next champion that is going to be on the list is going to be Husk. So he's in the Undead Horde faction. Husk is here, really good as well in endgame content, such as Hydra, of course. You can put him in a Relentless set. He does really well. This ability right here with Despair is his best ability. Attacks all enemies, and on top of it being an enemy max HP skill, he also has a chance to do a stun. 35% without books for a chance of placing that stun on all enemies. But if it's booked out, it does book out to 35, 45, 55, 60. 60% chance to book a stun if you want to go ahead and try to utilize a specific mastery on him to do an additional 5% chance. It'd be 65% against enemy waves for like Doom Tower, for dungeons, things like that. And he does really well in endgame Doom Tower for dungeons because they have a lot more HP. And then of course he has the stun mechanic as well, so you can consider utilizing Husk in endgame content. His A3, I don't even care about that, it's kind of crap. But his A1, also extremely important against the Magma boss for Doom Tower, and the Hydra head of Mischief, I believe it is. So you want to make sure you're utilizing him to get that Hydra head constantly provoked and ensuring that he's attacking him. And if you put him in a Relentless, you're pretty much guaranteed to have him almost always provoked throughout the duration of that fight. But we also have another champion, and it's going to be a Void champion for Epics, Dark Elves, and it's Madame Saras. So Madame Saras is arguably used to be one of the best arena champions in the game. She's still a really great arena champion, but I will say with the new meta, everybody utilizes Stone Skin now, so it's a 50-50 chance of actually removing the buffs. So she's kind of fallen out of the meta a little bit, especially endgame. You don't really see her as often in Platinum, but you can still utilize her through Gold 5 and still face a lot of teams and still get that buff strip removal going as long as she has really high accuracy. I think the biggest issue is when you put Mithrala and a Tormin on the team. If there's a Tormin with Mithrala, it's really hard to use a Madame Saras against that team because typically most players that have Madame Saras are like mid-game to late game, not end game. I mean, you got what, 10% or 5% or less of the player base that are actually truly end game and have insane gear. The rest of the player base, of course, has maybe like 500 to 700 accuracy, right? So whereas endgame players have like 800 accuracy or even more. I'm not sure if there are people out there who have 900 plus accuracy. I don't think I've seen that yet, but I'd love to hear it in the comments. If you do have a 900 plus accuracy Madame Saras, put it down below in the comments. Join the Discord, slap it into the Discord as well. I'd love to see it. So decrease attack, decrease defense, Fantastic ability. She could be utilized in any content in the game. She could actually be utilized against the Scarab boss as like just one random slot in champion that's always going to put a shield on herself. So she places a shield buff on herself equal to 10% of her max HP at the start of every turn. So if she has a lot of HP, she puts a bigger shield. But she doesn't necessarily need to have a ton of HP. She should be fast enough for arena. She's mainly an arena-based champion, but you can use her in the Dark Elves faction crypt, you can use her in dungeons, and she's going to pretty much guarantee this ability right here. So she doesn't need books to actually remove the buffs from the enemies. And there is, of course, that 3% chance that it doesn't work, because, you know, player just loves RNG in this game, but there is that 3% chance that it doesn't work. The A2, Tricks and Treats, not Trick or Treat, but Tricks and Treats. This one here attacks all enemies, 40% chance of stealing a random buff from each target, places a block debuff buff on all allies for 2 turns if any buff is stolen, and places a True Fear debuff for 1 turn on enemies who have buffs stolen. So that's pretty fantastic. So unless they have multiple buffs, like from CV when she places multiple buffs and places a block debuffs buff, if for some reason she steals the increased defense from them and doesn't steal the block debuffs buff, then unfortunately she won't land that True Fear, but it does allow you to get an increased defense on yourself, which is really cool. So there's that. Now we're going to go into the legendary champions, and you guys are going to be excited to see this. So our first legendary champion we've got going on is Theodore. So you can see this is my pay-to-win account. It's actually a lot worse than my free-to-play main account. I prefer utilizing the free-to-play main over the pay-to-win, but Theodore, insane champion. He's going to be a part of a 10x. He's arguably the best dungeon progression champion and wave clearing champion in the game. He could be paired really well because he does have the increased duration of all poisons and HP burn debuffs on the enemies. Insanely good against Spider, insanely good against Dragon, insanely good against Ice Golem. He's actually fairly good against Night Revenant too. I've seen some super endgame whales utilize, I think, 1 or 2 Theodores with 2 Calvlax and an Exploding Champion or something like that, and they just go insane against the Fire Knight as well. So really good champion, attacks all enemies as well, and he has a decreased speed. I mean, this guy has it all. Poison sensitivity, increased speed on all allies. He's ridiculous, and an accuracy aura in all battles. Like, this guy is insane in all content in the game. The next champion we've got going on is Zavia. So she's with the Dark Elves. So Zavia, we've got the Dark Elves champion here. This is a poison exploder. I would say she's probably the weakest out of the bunch for legendaries that they're going to be doing a 10x on, but she's still a very, very strong champion. Very good for nuking down waves because she does poison explosion. Extremely good against Ice Golem. Extremely good against Dragon. Okay against Fire Knight as well, but I don't really see a lot of people utilize Zavia in Fire Knight as compared to like Seer and other champions, but she can be utilized against Fire Knight too. And of course, endgame Doom Tower content, and you can use her in Arena because this ability right here does a block revive, which is really, really nice, and poison explosion as well, which is very strong in Arena. However, you don't really see people utilize her as much as you would see them utilizing other champions like Trunda and other good champions like Hephrak and stuff like that. So the next champion we've got going on, Hephrak. So he's going to be part of the demon spawns, and I do have Hephrak on this pay-to-win account. He's insane. This guy is probably the second best nuker in the game, but the thing is it's conditional, so he has to hit, attack all enemies, places an extra hit on targets with less than 50% HP. So I'd say that he's probably maybe the third best for nuking in the game. So it's definitely Baron is the best because he can go through shields and ignore them, whereas him, I guess it would be between him and then Leorius. I think Leorius might be a little bit better because Leorius, he has the unkillable on himself and does more damage when he has lower HP. Whereas him, because of all the stone skin going on, it's hard to utilize this guy because you won't be getting their HP below half health with the stone skin. And if they have crazy shields, sometimes he has troubles going through those crazy shields as well with like against Duchess and stuff like that. So that can be a little bit of a challenge, but he does smack insanely hard. You only have to build him with 70% crit rate because he does place an increased crit rate on himself, and it goes on for 3 turns, so that's pretty insane. You do not need 100% crit rate on this guy. Alright, so for the Void legendaries now, so the first one is going to be Hegemon. So Hegemon is insane, I will say. And he's like not in the meta as much as he used to be based on the platinum pushing players, but most players out there are just still in gold 5 or gold 4 or maybe lower. So this guy's insane all the way through gold 5. He's still really good in gold 5. If I had this guy on my free-to-play main account, he would help progress me into silver 4 tag team and potentially even gold 1 in tag team, because he does have that crazy passive ability where he always goes first. But if there's multiple Hedgies in battle, the Hegemon with the highest speed will move first, followed by the next highest, so on and so forth. Personally, it's hard to utilize Hegi now. He used to be the best. He used to be the best meta champion in the game for offense and or defense. Well, maybe, I guess you could say arguably maybe a couple of years ago he was the best when you didn't have Necrolord and you didn't have these other crazy champions, right? And Stone Skin and things like that. But now if he goes against Stone Skin, he's really not going to do anything against Stone Skin, okay? And then Stone Skin, he does a turn meter depletion, I believe, on his A1. Yeah, 35% chance of placing a decreased speed buff. And if you put him in that ability, I think Evil Eye, he'll decrease the turn meter with the A1 as well, which is what a lot of people utilize him for too. But the issue is, on defense, if you just bring in a couple of Stone Skin champions, then Hegemon doesn't really do much anymore. However, he's still a very, very, very good champion. He can be utilized in endgame content, especially against waves and things like that, especially against Siphies, things like that too, because with this ability, decrease attack and block active skills is very good against Siphi and very good against other champions that are support based. So still a very, very great champion and still sought after by a lot of players in the community. Alright, so the last person we've got going on for Void Legendary is actually going to be Necrolord the Great. So Necrolord the Great, probably, arguably, one of the best, I say top 2. He could be number 1. Duchess might be number 1. That's arguable. But between Duchess and Necrolord, best defense support-based champion in the game for Arena. For offense, I would say that Necrolord is way better on offense as compared to defense in Arena, because with him, he's going to protect your damage dealers. I mean, he's just insane, brings block debuffs, ally protection, strengthen for 3 turns, teams up with allies to attack an enemy, and then if he doesn't kill them, he grants an extra turn, which is crazy, and then he attacks 3 times against one enemy, decreases their attack. I mean, this guy's just ridiculous, and it can't be resisted, so that's even more insane. So you don't need to build him with any accuracy. It's not required, because this effect cannot be resisted. So that's crazy. So 20% chance of placing it, books up to 30%. So if you meet that threshold, you're just placing a decreased attack. He's ridiculous, right? Plus he has a resist in all battles by 60, which is just even more insane. So this guy, probably arguably the best champion on this 10x. What do you guys think? Are you guys going to be pulling your shards for this 10x? Are you going to be going for them? Personally, I don't know. I'm probably going to go for them, obviously, with the void shards, but I don't know how close I am to pity, so not really quite sure about that. Again, this is going to be one of those things where Playam's doing this because they want you to spend your money, and they've done this quite a few times already with Necrolord being the 10x guaranteed or 10x champion. I wish they did a guarantee for Necrolord, but they'll never do that because they won't make money on it in the long run. They want to try to do their best to squeeze the life out of people as much as possible, right? And unfortunately, it just depends where you're at in the game. If you really want to go for this 10x, go for it. But again, the chances are so slim, because even if you pull a legendary champion, the chances are wicked slim that you're going to pull that void legendary Necrolord or that other champion like Hephrak, things like that. It's actually worse for non-void legendaries than it is for void legendaries for a chance of pulling them for a 10x, but still, it really depends on where you're at on your account. Do you have a ton of shards saved? Are you a whale or a kraken versus a free-to-play? If you're a free-to-play player, if you're going for the fusion and you don't have the amount of shards that you need and you just have enough voids to pull to be able to complete the fusion, then yes, you're probably going to pull your shards. But if you have tons of shards and you're not going for the fusion, then I do not recommend pulling on this non-2x event unless you have tons and tons of champions and you're just looking for specific champions. That's my opinion. I don't know about you guys. What is your opinion? Leave it down in the comments below. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace.